Chet, so good to have you here. Thanks for cooking us lunch as well.
No, it's an absolute pleasure. It's kind of my day job, actually, cooking lunch, so it's okay.
So look, I wanted to talk a bit about how you transitioned your career from physics and doing your doctorate, your PhD in physics, and down into the role and the world of chefing, and the Michelin star route, and to now like growing and starting your own restaurant business.
Yeah, so I mean, in many ways, quite an unconventional path to go down. But I think I should caveat it as well. I started working in restaurants when I was 17. So
17. Oh, right. Okay.
Yeah, so there was always something about hospitality that really drew me, but I never thought of it as a career because the pathway wasn't that clear before.
Sure.
And so when it came to deciding what to do, I mean, I love the sciences.
Yeah.
So I went to university, was working in kitchens on the side, but purely to understand more about food, because I loved cooking, looking after people. That was always a big part of our culture as well. But like I say, never thought of it as a career. Carried on through that process. Did the undergrad, masters, PhD, which sounds like quite a big time investment. But I always loved what I was studying, so it was never a chore really.
Sure.
And then there was kind of this sort of light bulb moment where I was in the middle of writing my thesis, and I was in the lab late one night on a Sunday, and I locked up the lab, was leaving, and I saw my supervisor was in his office. Now, this guy, by most measures, is already pretty successful, right?
Yeah.
He's a young professor at Oxford. He's got his whole family life and everything else. Instead of being at home with his family, these young kids, he was writing grant applications.
Right.
And I don't know why I never really thought of it before then, that if you're going to be really successful at something, you're going to have to put in the yards. A lot of people see the glamorous side of kitchens, or even with the studying side, like, you've got this great degree and everything else. But you have to put in the work to get there. And if I'm going to do anything on a Sunday night and miss out on life, it's going to be cooking.
Right.
So that was the moment where it's like, okay, finished my PhD. 2 days later, moved out to Spain and got really serious about working in restaurants at that point.
Yeah. And so I guess the realization wasn't that you weren't going to have to put in the hours, like you're still going to be working late on a Sunday, but just instead of writing grant applications, you were going to thrive in an environment like the intensity of a kitchen, of a professional kitchen.
Well, that was just it. I mean, the work is still there. And I probably now do more hours, even at this stage of my career. Probably do more hours working at the restaurant or with the other external bits and pieces that we're doing. But it never feels like work, and that for me is the key.
Yeah.
Whereas grant applications, I mean, the science is always the science is fun, right? I'd still keep in touch with it. I'd still have a new scientist subscription. Right. Still try to know what's going on in the wider world of the sciences in general. But it's a very different thing to being an observer rather than being in there.
Yeah. And what type of physics were you doing?
Yeah, so it's a bit of an odd one. So my friends who are astrophysicists will tell you that it's not real physics.
Okay.
So my background was actually in chemistry and then neurology.
Okay.
And I was going to carry on in the neurology space, and it was back in 2008, and that's when the big financial crash happened. And then all sorts of companies were pulling away funding. So I actually had a position here in London. I was doing my master's at UCL. I had a position at UCL, and then Pfizer pulled the funding. So it's all medical related.
Okay.
And then I had a project that I really wanted to do, and a little bit of resilience to try and find other funding. And we found the funding through the EPSRC, which is the Engineering and Physical Sciences Research Council.
Okay.
It's a bit of a mouthful.
Well remembered.
EPSRC is easier.
Yeah.
And so we managed to secure some funding from them and also from the Medical Research Council. And then I basically knocked on the doors of professors and postdocs that I thought were doing amazing things within the neurology space. And, one guy happened to be in biophysics. So Stephen Tucker, who I studied under for my PhD. And and he took me in with open arms and taught me a little bit about physics, but it was really sort of cross-disciplinary.
Yeah.
So the physics element of it was looking at, it's electrical conductivity. It just happens to be through soft tissue rather than through material sciences.
Right. And so like there's a lot of similarities there, because I saw some of my senior colleagues working in A&E, general practice, ITU, for example, and I could see they were putting in the hours, they were doing work outside when they were in hospital environments and clinical environments. But I wanted to do something a little bit different. So teaching people the basics of eating well, nutrition, looking after oneself. But very similar to you, I probably put way more hours in now doing this kind of stuff, the podcast, the cookbooks, all the rest of it. But you're right, it does feel like play. It feels like, I'm having fun every single day when I'm coming into the studio, I'm chatting to the research team, I'm deep in papers and all that kind of, and we do grant applications here as well. So I kind of see that element. But my question is, why is the kitchen for you a source of play? Like, what is it about cooking that you find so joyful?
Yeah, so that's definitely a question I've asked myself many times over the years, because I've been in restaurants now for 19 years, so more than half my life. And I think part of it is the creative aspect, which the sciences never gave me. They could never sort of scratch that itch.
Sure.
We get to create, and we get to storytell, and we get to what we do at BiBi in a big way is look at nostalgia and flavors from my past and my experiences, and how do you put that out in front of people and present it in a way that they've not seen before.
Yeah.
So the creative part is definitely some of it. Yeah. So aside from the creative bit, it's also now having come back into Indian food. So my entire upbringing in restaurants was sort of modern European, as you mentioned, sort of multi-Michelin-starred. Now I kind of used the restaurant as a tool to understand myself and my own culture and my own family history a little bit better than I did before.
Yeah.
Even most recently, we did something with the British Library where we had the opportunity to go in and look at texts from the 16th, 17th, 18th century, to go and discover old recipes. And it was really interesting to see how that changed during first the East India Company coming in and the Portuguese and all these new influences coming into Indian food. And of course, those texts were also based on the Mughals who came from Uzbekistan originally. So yeah, that's a part now as BiBi sort of finds its feet. We're coming up to our third year in business, and now we get to explore some of the more personal parts of that journey as well.
Yeah. There's so many things I want to ask you about. So the Michelin-star route that you went on over the last 19 years, I think is super interesting. But the exploration of the density of what Indian cooking actually means, like you just mentioned here, there's a sort of clash of different cultures as people arrived at different stages in the last few centuries. Why don't we start with your Michelin-star route? So there are different kinds of chefs. From my uneducated sort of sideline opinion here, there are those who want to strive to be the best, right? To be sort of beacons of cooking in their chosen cuisine or domain. And then there are others who want to do sort of like fast casual, they want to start a business, they want to start a franchise, whatever those might be. What made you go down that path that led you to the best sort of restaurants in Europe? And I think you've been in Copenhagen, France, all the sort of like great places that people have on their sort of bucket list.
So I think the main reason for going down that route was it was defined. If you want to start a business in the fast casual space, it's not actually that straightforward as to how you go about doing that. Whereas with the super high end stuff, whether it's the Mugaritz or L'Enclume or any of those kind of places, you go there, you work your 80 hours, 90 hours a week or whatever it is, get your head down, you learn a whole lot of skills. Some skills still that you miss out as a business owner. I've sort of learned over the last 5 or 6 years. But you get to learn how to do everything to the best standard. And so that's why that world always attracted me. And it's what we try and teach the people who come into BiBi now. There's a right way and a wrong way to do things, but also there's a reason for doing it. And that's what you really learn at the top level.
Yeah.
And then actually, it's interesting you say that because BiBi was originally going to be super high end, because I've only ever worked in 2 and 3 Michelin-starred restaurants. So it was going to be, I mean, it is tasting menu only, but it was going to be a very fancy tasting menu. It was going to be even more expensive than it is. It's going to be smaller, and it was going to be more fine dining, and never necessarily white tablecloths, but a lot of silver service, a lot of truffle at the table and caviar and this and that. And we still do some elements of it. But actually, the pandemic hit soon after we signed the lease on the property, and it made us reconsider everything that we love and miss about restaurants. And a big part of why I came down to London anyway, having been at sort of Longcloom and then Moor Hall and all of those places, was to understand the business of restaurants better. Because that's what you definitely don't learn working in high-end restaurants, because it's not that money is no object, but they're not always commercial ventures. You know, they are opportunities to showcase something that you can do, and maybe something that you can do that nobody else in the world can do. But they don't necessarily, as a business, as a standalone, drive significant revenues in terms of profitability. And that's why I came down to London. It's what I've loved about working with JKS Restaurants as well. Because of course they open amazing restaurants. You know, even if you put BiBi to one side, they have an incredible roster of restaurants.
And Sabor, like some incredible places.
and then at a completely different level, Bao and Berenjak and Plaza. Like, there's so many places that you can name, and it's kind of every vertical within the restaurant industry. And they're all driven by the same sort of thing. Of course, some are more creative and more expressive than others, but they're all businesses. And they are businesses that treat clients, customers, guests incredibly well, which is why they charge what they charge and everything else. But they're also very conscious of like, oh, actually, we do need to turn tables. So we do need to make sure that beverage spend is at a certain point. They're not cash grabbing, but they have to work as businesses.
Let's explore the Indian aspect of your cooking and what it actually means to doing new cooking, because I had this conversation with Malika Basu on the podcast recently, where she was like, people just call Asian food Asia. Like, how can you condense the food of 49 different countries into one word? It's just impossible. And I think my pushback was, how can you even do that with India, like with the number of different states, the number of different influences? So when you think of Indian cooking, like what do you want people to actually think of? Because I know what people are going to think of, and that is the C word.
No, and don't get me wrong.
And that's curry, just in case anyone was wondering.
And don't get me wrong, you know, our food is based on a lot of curries. Like there is a lot of curries, and if you're craving, you know, like butter chicken and garlic naan and those kind of and dal makhani and all those kind of things, that is a different type of food to what we do. Now, Indian food, I always give the example. India, tip to toe, is from Kashmir in the north to Kerala in the south, is the same distance as here to Istanbul.
Yeah, I don't think people realize that.
And it's wider than it is long as well. Right. And then if you actually look at my family's background is kind of mixed, because I mean we're Punjabi, but the half of the family is from the Pakistani side. So that's actually, if you throw in India, Pakistan, I've got family from what's now Myanmar, and Sri Lanka, and Nepal. Like, these were all part of one kind of giant country. I mean, India as a country didn't really exist. It's kind of one of the few big positives from colonialism, but there was no country called India. And, you know, we happen to be from the same sort of part, roughly, of the country. We're different religions, to start. So we have different cultural viewpoints. And I'm sure there's some things that your family would have eaten that my family wouldn't have eaten.
Totally,
you know, there's going to be differences there. That's within the same state. So when I meet somebody from Kerala or from Tamil Nadu or, you know, from Meghalaya, like any of these the states in India, they don't recognize me or my language or my food as their food. So defining food as Indian is nearly impossible. It's nearly impossible. So, and that I play into that in a big way, because sometimes when people are like, how can you use soy sauce in one of your dishes? It's like, well, in Manipur, we have soy. We have soy sauce. We have traditional, I mean, it's not very good, but we have indigenous versions of fermented soybeans that we use. So we can take those elements and use them here and there. It depends where you really want to draw the line. Because if you want to say Indian food has to be stuff that is indigenously Indian, well, you can say bye to tomatoes, to chilies, to potatoes, cauliflower. Even the use of a lot of different types of meat in India. I mean, jungle fowl, they kind of trace the roots back to India. So chickens are from India.
Oh, really?
But we didn't eat chicken until the British came.
Yeah.
Because we would eat what in India is known as mutton, but goat meat. Some places you have sheep. And of course, some places you'll have buffalo in the non-Hindu parts. But it was something that the British brought in. And so when we think of chicken curry as the most Indian thing out there, we didn't eat chicken. So, and curry, again, I'm sure many, many people have said this. It's not a word in any of the languages I know from India.
Yeah.
So, it gives us freedom at BiBi if you come in with an open mind.
Okay.
To serve all sorts of things that, as long as it has some nostalgic link to Indian cuisine, we can kind of make it work.
Just a quick one. If you're enjoying this kind of content, you will love our free newsletter called Eat, Listen, Read. Every week, I send you a recipe that you'll absolutely love, something to listen to, something to read, sometimes something to watch, less than 3 minutes, and it will help you have a healthful, happier week. You can find that in the link down below. Totally, yeah. Well, I mean, you've already blown my mind with the whole soy sauce sourcing, but there was something else you mentioned to me about chocolate earlier, and I didn't realize that there were chocolate plantations in India. But it's much more than just having a few cocoa trees, right? Yeah,
so it's mainly traded as a sort of a commodity crop, which is generally not very good quality. And I looked for a long, long, long time to find good quality chocolate in India because we have, again, because it's so big, so vast, we have every microclimate on the planet. We have rainforests, we have deserts, we have snow-capped mountains. We've got all of it. And there is a place, there's two places that I think grow good chocolate in India. One is sort of the hill station area of Kerala, close to where also some of the world's best coffee comes from, I'll add. And then there's parts of Tamil Nadu and Pondicherry, where we source most of our chocolate from. I often say to guests, for my money, and I guess technically theirs, it's some of the best chocolate in the world. And it really does, in blind tasting, stand up to any other chocolate that you get anywhere else.
Wow.
We do the same thing with our coffee. So we had a coffee expert come in and we tasted stuff from Brazil, from Jamaica, from East Africa and India, until we were happy that this product stands up alongside. We weren't going to serve it in the restaurant. But the fact that it was very easy to find great quality coffee in India tells you a lot. The chocolate took a little bit longer, and we're actually working on a chocolate bar of our own now, which we're super excited about. I mean, we're working on it for 3 years, so we're getting there. But we can basically grow anything in India. You just have to find the right place for it.
Yeah. Oh, the factoid about the microclimates is testament to that, I guess. If you do have all these different temperatures, then you can grow like just an abundance of produce.
We have olive oil in India.
What?
Yeah. Yeah, we have olive oil in India.
Are you serious?
Yeah, I mean, with some of this stuff, it's the culture doesn't develop out enough. So you're never going to get, unless you get someone super passionate who's just going to look at olive oil for their entire lives, you might not be able to get, I won't say never, you might not be able to get the same quality you can get out of a Greece or Spain or Italy, where the predominant fat they use is olive oil, and they've been doing it for thousands of years. But the Greeks were in India, and they left olives there, as they did all over Eurasia. So we've in Rajasthan, there's lots and lots and lots of olive trees.
Oh my gosh!
But there's no culture for extra virgin olive oils, like cold pressed and all that. But it's changing now, because now there's a generation of people who are saying, hey, we have this amazing stuff.
Yeah.
How can we get it to be on par with everything else? So it happened for chocolate in India. It happened for coffee a bit earlier.
Yeah.
And I guess the next thing might be olive oil.
Wow.
Or soy. One of the two.
Or soy, yeah. This is turning into an episode of Goodness Gracious Me where everything's Indian. And you just go to the supermarket.
Yeah, I do get accused of that sometimes, especially by my wife. She's just like, no, not everything has to be Indian. It's not, but it's not Indian. It's not olives aren't Indian.
Of course,
in the way that chilies aren't Indian.
Yeah.
It's actually a longer history of olives in India than chilies, but no one would ever think.
Wow, really?
Yeah, 4,000 years.
Of course, yeah, because
Yeah.
if the Greeks are there, yeah.
Yeah.
That's wild.
Yeah.
And so are there things like things like that you've discovered along your journey that have just completely blown your mind? Like,
yeah, I mean, I think that when I found soy in India, it's very different to when you think of sort of Chinese and Japanese soy. So it's there's no wheat in it. So it's more like a tamari, but it gives it, it's not as complex.
Gotcha.
But it does give you that sort of umami hit that you sometimes are looking for. So we do use it, but we would never serve it. You'd never want to taste it by itself.
Sure.
It's a bit like fish sauce, really. Like it's quite full on. But that was probably the one thing that I was just like, yeah, it makes sense. We border with Tibet and China, and like it makes sense, but you never really think about it.
You wouldn't associate it.
And what was the other one? Lemongrass is Indian. Yeah, lemongrass is actually Indian.
Is actually Indian.
Lemongrass is Indian. Oranges are Indian, and no one ever. Yeah, no. So
I think of oranges, and I think of Mediterranean. You know, like Spain, and I think obviously Florida. And
yeah, so there's a really great guy who looks at the sort of etymology of words, and one of them he was diving into was oranges. So in Sanskrit, it's nirangi.
Yeah, no, which is the phytochemical naringin, which is one of the antioxidants that you find.
And then that led to naranja and all the other orange variations that you get throughout sort of the Latin places.
Gosh,
but oranges are.
What about that?
Yeah.
Yeah, naranja, which is Spanish for orange.
Yeah. So it's weird because if I served an orange dish at BiBi, I think a lot of guests would be like, "This is not Indian food."
Yeah.
Well, I mean, it's more Indian than Indian lemons, which actually come from a different part of the world.
What?
Yeah.
Hold on, we don't get lemons in India?
No, we do now, but they're not.
But it originally was.
They came from China, I believe.
Gosh. And so the potatoes would have come from the Spaniards, I guess.
The Portuguese, chilies, and this Vasco da Gama was, oh God, I don't want to say specific date.
Sure,
the 17th century.
Sure, yeah.
When he landed in India, and he brought with him fresh chilies. We had some dried chilies through different trade routes, maybe 50 years earlier.
Yeah.
But actually the big influx was 17th and then eventually 18th century when you saw a massive influx of different produce.
And was that like the southern parts of the country? Like, are we talking like Goa?
Yeah, it would have started in Goa and worked its way up.
Is there a reason? Is that why? I'm showing my ignorance here about Indian cooking, but like, is that why those dishes are typically hotter because they have a lot more variety of chilies that they were experimenting with?
I mean, it's a really good question. I don't necessarily know the answer to it, but what's interesting now is the most popular chili in India is from Kashmir, so way up in the north, which is never really colonized, not fully anyway.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm not sure. I think that the heat when you think about a lot of hot countries, they tend to have a lot of hot food.
Yeah, they do. So I've always found that strange.
It's something. It's got to be something to do with the sweat, right? Like it gets you going. Yeah, I mean, you think of like Thai food and that kind of thing as well. There's definitely a link there. There's also part of the story of chilies and spice in general used as antiseptic agents and things like that. So if you're in a hot country, your proteins are probably going bad quicker. You probably need more chili to cover up those flavors. So,
yeah. And talking of antiseptics and stuff, pickles. So pickles are things that I always remember at the table growing up in an Indian household, right? When you go to supermarkets these days, you get quite processed pickles in a sort of limited supply. I really feel there needs to be a renaissance of Indian pickles because we've got the heritage of pickling, and I just think there's just so much we can do, particularly as it pertains to nutrition these days. Kimchi's having a moment. All the different types of krauts from Germany having a moment. Indian pickles are really healthy. They can be healthy.
They can be healthy, yeah. I think a lot of them, especially the stuff from further north. In the south, they use a lot of sesame oil, but in the north, they use a lot of mustard oil.
Right, yeah.
Which mustard oil is great.
Yeah,
it's really good for you and everything else as well. But
my dad's a big fan of mustard oil. He calls it miracle mustard oil.
Well, yeah, my family's background is in mustard and wheat, so
okay,
we love mustard.
Yeah.
But when my mum used to try and deep fry in mustard oil in our house in the UK, it's not the same as doing it on a farm in India. I mean, it's basically you create mustard gas.
Yeah.
So everyone in the house is in tears. It's not a good look for anybody. But yeah, no, I think you're right. I mean, I can't imagine a day where we ate in my grandmother's house and didn't have 3 different pickles. Like there'd be one that's quite fresh, typically something like carrot or ginger, something that's been done very recently. More often than not, there was some sort of probably mango related one or a fruit related one, but sour fruit, not sweet.
Yeah.
And then you'd have something super aged. So actually, it was a really nice thing that I waited until we had the restaurant. My maternal grandmother, who's from India, she had this black lemon pickle that she used to make.
Okay.
And I had 1 bottle left of her achar, and she passed away in a long time ago, 2009.
Okay.
I'm making that up, 2007.
Okay.
Sorry
Yeah.
to my family for not remembering the year. And I had 1 bottle of it left, and on her birthday, the first birthday that we reached at BiBi, we served that pickle as well in the restaurant.
Wow.
And now I just need to, in 15 years time, I can serve the next batch.
Yeah.
But there is also, in terms of like the history of pickles as well, there's some that are super prized for being very, very old. So when you think of, I guess black garlic had a bit of a phase with people here.
Yeah.
We have many versions of blackened vegetables that have been pickled for 5, 10, 15 years, buried deep underground as well. So they really sort of hit a lot of pressure.
Oh, wow.
So those are the kind of things I'd love to explore more as time goes on at BiBi.
Yeah.
The first year of running a restaurant is always a bit frantic.
Totally, yeah.
And then you kind of find your feet. And now the team's settled as well. And that makes a big difference.
Let's talk a bit about that first year of running the restaurant, because stress is something that you hear about a lot within the chefing industry. And you've had first-hand experience of just how bad that stress can be physically on your health.
Yeah, so I've not talked about it a great deal before. It was before opening the restaurant. We were running meal kits during the pandemic, and we were so far in over our heads on it. It was not what we expected at all. I mean, it was incredibly successful in that period. So I was doing this on behalf of JKS, as sort of heading up their retail team, and this is kind of it's an internal pressure I placed on myself, and it's probably the chef within me that did it. Sure. To try and to overstretch and push things a bit too far.
Yeah.
I'm always very grateful to the directors at JKS and everything else. They never pushed commercially. That was always me who's like, we can do more. Wow. So I also want to be very keen to state that they are not in any way responsible for what happened. Sure. But I worked so much. I got so stressed. My immune system was in the toilet. And I got something called Ramsay-Hunt syndrome, which we very strategically were placed. So you can see this side of my face, not the other side, because the other side is still, I still have facial palsy, which has now been, 3 years later. Okay. And there's, pain associated with it, dizziness and, a little bit of vertigo, that kind of thing. Now I know how to manage it, so it's a lot better. When I opened the restaurant, until the week before, I was wearing an eye patch because I couldn't blink. Wow. So it's gotten a lot better. It's not 100% recovered and never will be. Yeah.
Just for folks who aren't aware of Ramsay-Hunt, it's a syndrome where you have inactivation of part of the facial nerve, and it affects hearing, as well as the muscles in one side of your face as well, which is why you can't blink down one side. And
the scary thing is, I mean, it's the same virus as chickenpox, which stays dormant in most people. It's shingles as well. It's the same thing. Yeah.
So it's a reactivation of the varicella zoster.
Yeah. Which obviously happens when you're not looking after yourself very well. Yeah. And so the learning from that was, how do we? And I was very lucky, not just with the people above me within JKS, but also a lot of my team at BiBi, especially my head chef at the time. He'd been with me throughout the pandemic as well. And he was the one who was like, you need to look after your health. It doesn't matter. The restaurant is going to be great because the food's great. But if you're not here to carry that flag forward, then that's not good for anybody.
Yeah.
So you need to make sure, like, he'd be basically putting me in a cab home at 10 o'clock. Like, you can't be here till 1 o'clock in the morning, like most chefs. And that I was really grateful for in the early days. But it made me learn as a leader of a business as well, how important welfare is. Because now, we try and change things. I mean, high-end restaurants are never going to be an easy place to work.
Sure.
But we try and make sure that if you're, closing the night before, you're not opening the following morning. It's very different in my generation.
Yeah.
And I think everyone says that about everything. It's like, it's so much harder for us. But it wasn't necessary. I remember working at a restaurant here in London, in West London, and you'd be on the rota for 8 a.m. You'd get in at 6 o'clock in the morning and you wouldn't be the first person there. People would take food home to prep for the restaurant because they'd be so far behind. And you'd get out of there at midnight, 1 o'clock in the morning, and be back in the next day to do the same thing. Sometimes doing that 5 days in a row straight.
Yeah.
It's a lot of work.
Yeah.
So we've tried to rebalance things and change things. Even, and going on to the food part, we write a weekly food plan for the team. So we have breakfast and lunch in the restaurant, or lunch/dinner. One meal at sort of 10 a.m., one meal at around 4 or 4:30. And I mean, I'd kind of already got onto this path because of some of my experience working at, in particular, Mugaritz in Spain, where they'd have 2 people just making staff food.
Oh, wow.
I mean, it's a huge brigade there. There's 50 chefs in the kitchen.
Oh, gosh.
So it kind of made sense that you'd almost have like a staff canteen.
Yeah.
And they had very strict rules on, you'd have basically a probiotic, a green, some fruit. Like, there's always stuff on the table that made it felt very, very communal, very family-like.
Yeah.
And it's why, honestly, everyone I know who's worked at Mugaritz will praise Andoni and the team there.
Really?
Because I've never been looked after like that as a chef before.
Yeah.
And we try and bring elements of that into BiBi as well.
Yeah, it sounds it. So, like, bringing balance into your workplace, the staff meals, ensuring that they're healthy, I'm guessing. Any other elements that you've taken on personally from your own experience of ill health? Because you're still not fully recovered from it, and it doesn't seem like you're going to have a full recovery from.
I think part of it is just making sure that workloads are responsible. And I'm really fortunate. A lot of the team, they want to do the 60, 70, 80-hour weeks. We just don't let it happen.
Okay.
I'll name one person, my head pastry chef.
Yeah.
We said to her the other day, if you don't leave, I'm leaving. Because she was on the road till 6, but 7 o'clock, go home.
Yeah.
Have a lot. And she'd come straight from the airport as well.
Oh,
because she'd been away for a few days. So, but the whole team's like that.
Yeah.
You have to push them out the door. But I'm very disciplined about it as well. It's like, guys, have a life. Trust me, when I was in my 20s, I didn't. So you can have the balance that I never got. And also look after yourselves. Like, it's super important. And then, we do other things in terms of a big thing that's come out of the pandemic is sort of looking at the mental health and well-being side of things from that perspective. So we've got a few mental health first aiders in the team, myself included. We work with a few charities. Kelly's Cause is a great one, specifically for hospitality. The Burnt Chef Project as well. Because in our industry, we have a really high incidence of neurodiversity. And in addition to that, it's an incredibly stressful job, or it can be. So we need to make sure people have mechanisms to deal with that too. Yeah. And if all of those mechanisms fail, then at least the backup is that they have someone they can go and speak to as part of the employment plan at BiBi.
Yeah. There's so many similarities between the types of people that go into your industry and the types of people that go into medicine. The kind of folks that will turn up early, leave late, constantly bending themselves backwards, not really taking care of their own emotional and physical health, just to serve, basically. But I think where you're in a unique position is your ability to change the narrative, whereas in medicine, particularly as we work in a universal healthcare system, we're really at the mercy of politicians, the general sort of management structure of hospitals and stuff, which is very, very hard to change. Like, you can change the rota next week. We can't change the rota for my local A&E department. That's completely out of our control. We can just do sort of like the best we can within our individual teams and respective workplaces in that setting. So that it's really, really good to know about all these different elements of the chef industry and how that's improving? Would you say that's the general trend of improvement?
I think at the top level for many people, yes. I still think it's going to take some work to get everybody on board, because the other reality of all of this is it costs money. So I say BiBi is run as a business because it is, but there are things that we do that maybe aren't necessarily business wise. But my argument would be around staff retention in an environment where every restaurant is short staffed, BiBi included, especially when it comes to the front of house team, because it's an industry that maybe has been sexy in the past or has certain appeals, but it's not glamorous. So you really have to love what you do to do it, which means that there's a very small pool, especially post-Brexit. I don't go too much into politics, but there's a reason why when you go to a restaurant, most people speak with an accent. And it's becoming harder and harder to employ people. So every time we lose a staff member, it's going to cost 3 times more than it did the year before to hire them back, hire a new person in. And then the training element, the retention, all of that stuff. So if you can build a team, keep them happy, and part of that is keeping them healthy, you're in a much, much better position as a restaurant. I mean, we now, of course, like any business, we have fluctuations, but we have a pretty stable team now. And that makes a big difference to the quality overall of what we're producing, which means that commercially the business is going to be better. So it kind of, there is, I mean, it's not an exact science, but if you can invest in your team early, you probably will make a little bit of that money back. Maybe not all of it, but a little bit of it will come back. So that's my argument with my investors. So that's the way that I justify it. It's like, why are these guys working 45 hours a week? I was like, because normal people work 40 hours a week. Right? So we're still going above and beyond. And that's 45 on paper. Honestly, many of them are working still in the low 50s.
Totally.
But we're not letting it get to the old numbers. But there's also an education piece around guests on that as well. When somebody says the restaurant's expensive, it's like, well, yes. You want to see my bills at the moment? That not just on the staffing front, electricity, cost of ingredients, because of course, if we're gonna source from a more sustainable supplier, farmer, get the best quality product, chances are they're also paying their workers more money.
Totally.
So someone has to pay for that. And we'll take some of it, but we've got to meet in the middle a little bit.
Absolutely, And you know your suppliers by first name as well, so
that's I made the mistake of saying in the early days. There's 2 things that I said about suppliers. One is that we can name the fishermen who caught any seafood, because I think sustainability and overfishing, there's this constant sort of tug of war at the moment. And we need to, I mean, I love seafood. We serve a lot of it in the restaurant. And we're a tiny little island. Like, we have great seafood and we should be using it, but we need to do it responsibly. So saying that we could name every fisherman means that when I want to put something amazing and new that comes in, I mean, there's some incredible, there's amazing tuna coming in from Spain at the moment. And all these suppliers are telling me about it, and I'm seeing it in other restaurants. I'm just like, I can't use it. I can't use it. I mean, so I have to I'm sitting on my hands until August when the tuna fishing season starts in the UK. But it still also has to match the quality of the stuff that you get from other parts of the world. So, so there are a few compromises that we have to make as a result. I mean, we serve the best produce available within the British Isles. And the other one was saying that I visit all the farms that we get our spices from. Now, it was easy when we didn't have a restaurant. I could go to farms and travel around India and spend 3 days to go and see some peppercorns. Now you run a restaurant and trying to run a business and trying to build a brand. 3 days to go and see peppercorns is nearly impossible. So we have to try and figure out how we're going to work that around. Maybe cloning me would work. But we'll get there. I also, one of the guys who's been with us from the start, off his own back, he was super curious to go and visit some of the people that we work with. So he took a 3-month sabbatical early last year, and he traveled around India and Pakistan and visited the chocolate guys and the peppercorns and the cardamom fields. So at least he's keeping in touch a bit more than I've been able to in the last year or so.
Or at least someone on the brigade is going out there.
It doesn't need to be me.
I love that. We're going to finish off with something fun. Your 3 non-negotiables when it comes to what you keep on your personal kitchen at home.
Yeah. So personal kitchen. Well, one thing we played with already today is the ghee.
Yeah.
So the slightly illegal ghee that we have. We have amazing ghee at the restaurant. This is the ghee that I have at home is best in class, but it's not legal to have it in this to bring it into this country. Should I admit this on a recording?
Well, we're not gonna. That's not the ghee that you serve at the restaurant.
That's not what we serve at the restaurant.
No,
this is. So we use A2 desi cow ghee from India at home, and it is like nothing you've ever had before.
Okay.
There's not much I can do about it. I'd love to serve it to my guests. I'd love for them to be able to try how good this is. Yeah. Let's say if this is 10 out of 10, what we serve in the restaurant is like 9.5.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So it's close.
Okay.
But it's just that little edge.
So
we always have that at home. Amazing peppercorns.
Okay.
So peppercorns from Telecherry mainly. We have 9 different peppercorns in the restaurant. At home, I have 1 because I'm a normal person. Despite how I might come across, but these peppercorns are amazing, and it makes a huge difference.
Where they're from? Telecorn, sorry.
They're from Telecherry. Telecherry. I mean, I could say that about pretty much every spice that I use at home. Like we use the best of the best of the best.
Okay.
And those you can import legally, so we use those in the restaurant as well. And then actually something that might sound a bit odd, but salt. Yeah, because my biggest pet peeve is the horrible iodized salt that you get.
Oh, yeah.
Remember the one that your mum would have at home in the I can't say the name of the brand,
version.
But God,
I know the one you mean.
Yeah, I mean just good salt.
Yeah.
So we use at home we use kosher salt.
Okay.
Because I like how it feels in your hand.
Okay.
When you're seasoning. It's a really nice feeling. And chefs, if they're watching this, will fully understand what I mean.
Sure.
And then something like a flaky, like a Malden, or there's some great stuff coming out of Wales at the moment, salt-wise.
Oh, is there?
Yeah.
Any particular brands that you can mention?
I don't know how to say it. The problem is it's in Welsh.
Welsh.
So, yeah.
Okay, right.
It's like Halen Mon, I think.
Halen Mon. How do you spell it?
Oh, there's like accents and all sorts. I'm sorry, I've offended every Welsh person out there.
Okay, yeah.
But it's really, but the salt is really good.
The salt's really good. Okay, we're going to learn about it soon. Okay, yeah. That's really good to know. Yeah, good salt. What do you make of the whole Himalayan pink salt stuff? Do you?
Yeah, I mean, not all salts are created equal.
Sure.
I don't believe in a system where if you can have something really good here in the UK, you shouldn't be
using the other stuff.
Yeah.
Okay.
We again, tiny island, a lot of seawater.
Yeah.
It's quite easy to get salt here.
Yeah. And our salt is used around the world.
Well, yeah, molten salt. Everybody uses it.
Yeah.
That's why I didn't want to name them. But but yeah, no, we use molten in the restaurant as well, and it's very good salt.
Amazing.
And it makes a massive difference because, when you think about the basics, I mean, we never season food with pepper. I hate that idea because you never season food with cumin. Why would you? Pepper's a spice at the end of the day. But we season everything with salt. Sweet, savory, doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Sometimes even a little bit in your coffee.
Yeah. I've tried that actually.
Yeah.
I've oversalted my coffee before though. It didn't. You got to be careful about that. Yeah.
Just a tiny bit. Tiny bit. So we use salt so widely. So why would you not use the best? And the price difference between really crap salt and amazing salt is very small.
Yeah.
So for me, it's an investment worth making.
Totally, yeah. And price per use as well, given that you're using it across so many meals. Yeah. Those are brilliant. I wasn't expecting the pepper and salt, but it's a very good point.
Yeah. Well, I think we're all about sourcing at the restaurant. That's the whole story.
Yeah.
The prodigal son, the son of a farming family as well. So we like ingredients a lot.
Yeah.
And the step change difference between an okay ingredient and a great ingredient is it's exponential.
Yeah. Chet, this has been awesome, man. I've been loving chatting to you, and I just can't wait to see what you do next with BiBi and all your other ventures that you've got going on as well. So this is epic.
Thank you so much. It's been a pleasure.
If you loved that episode, you will love the full library of podcasts from the Doctor's Kitchen Library. We talk about everything from inflammation, supplements, and food as medicine. Just like this episode right here. You can click it right now and check it out.